What's the most inappropriate time you laughed? A woman got on stage to sing during a friend's wedding as part of the ceremony. It was naturally a song the bride and groom chose. As soon as she opened her mouth, it became clear that she absolutely tone deaf. It sounded like an animal being tortured. I was trying not to laugh, but two guys behind me started laughing, and it set off a chain reaction of laughter. Even the groom was red-faced from trying not to laugh. She just kind of sheepishly left the stage afterward. At my grandaunt's funeral. She was a big jolly food lover while alive, and is sorely missed. Everything was going along, lots of tears while the vicar was giving the eulogy, until he shared her last words, "Cream on. A little whipped cream isn't going to kill me." I lost my shit. This was 10 years ago, and I still feel terrible for laughing. My grandma died 2 years ago at 94, and for years she'd been warning everyone that she could die any minute. She was quite healthy for her age. One Christmas she told me which reading I would do at her funeral. One Easter, when my uncle from the other side of the family was telling her about his 95-year-old mother, my grandma told him the government should just kill everyone at 95 and get it over with. So her impending death a family joke for over 10 years. Then at her funeral, which she had planned every detail of years before, they played I'll Fly Away, which is a really dancey, joyous song about dying. It was so her. My sister and I made eye contact, and after that we lost it. We were trying to cover our mouths and faces, but our shoulders were shaking, so my cousins behind us thought we were crying and tried to comfort us. Eventually we were laughing so hard we were crying, so it evened out. A young teenager was leaning forward in a chair at a restaurant, lost traction, and slammed their face into the table. Absolute hysterical sobbing ensued. Their parents stopped eating their salads to make sure they were okay. They were, aside from a nosebleed. I was sitting at the table next to them, and cracked the fuck up at the sound of them hitting the table, and even more when they started crying. I was a horrible human being in that moment. Feel bad after the fact, but in the moment it tickled me to my core. Group therapy. The kid, 22 or so, but you get the idea, was talking passionately about his struggles with Asperger's and OCD. He had a squeaky voice. He started talking about his OCD categories. Things that belonged under the earth, things that belonged on the earth, things that belonged in the water, and things that belonged in space. He named specific objects, rocks, bugs, etc. He said there were some things he could not fit neatly into his categories, even if they seemed like they were supposed to be in one. This distressed him. He bemoaned cars. He bemoaned women and pointed at one. Then with no segue, announced that the reason he was there was because he snuck into the zoo at night and leapt into the lion enclosure. I had to bury my face in my elbow and turn away. Of course his problems were real, but it just seemed so out of place on a day when people were talking about who diddled them when. A few years ago I was participating in a religious ceremony with my extended family. I'm not religious, but my mom and her family are, so I agreed to participate. I was tasked with reading one of the sections aloud, and had to read off a list of titles of the Virgin Mary. Most of them were pretty straightforward: Queen of the Angels, Queen Most Holy, etc. But there's one section that starts with the word Virgin. I get to it and I'm trying not to smirk, but as soon as I said the phrase Virgin Most Powerful, I glanced at my brother and my so, and they were grinning at me. Their grins caused me to burst into giggles, and I had to excuse myself while my mom glared knives into me. My brother continued the rest of the reading. Me and my cousin are to this day best friends, but we were really crazy back when we were 8 to 10. In 4th grade, we both were in this school where the teachers forbid downloading stuff on the computers, and we decided to, I'm not kidding, download some porn. Let me just explain how the PCs were lined up. It was basically 4 rows of tables with computers on them, meaning that there were many kids beside and behind us. Also there were 2 teachers going around to check on the kids. We search for porn, and immediately as the results appear our 8-10-year-old asses start laughing as loud as possible. I thought to myself, yep, this is it. We're gonna get caught. One of the teacher was behind us checking on the other row, and we were laughing so hard that I couldn't move the mouse to close the window, wondering how no one even batted an eye. So I just managed to download a porn picture and close the window off, then moved the picture in a random folder, and we were never caught. To this day I can't believe the luck our dumb selves had. Accidentally ate some edibles in college. A friend just handed me a cookie, and it took me swallowing it to recognize the taste. I was busy playing on my phone, not paying attention to the conversation our group was having, so I'm sure he wasn't trying to fuck with me. Sitting in a class about an hour later, music history for music majors, and I suddenly remembered that we used to throw pencils at the ceiling in high school to get them stuck. I had a mechanical pencil, so I doubted it would work. I looked up and realized that the back 5 or 6 feet of ceiling were actually sheetrock, and I was under it. Well, I reasoned with myself that a mechanical pencil is tougher than a wooden pencil, so if I threw it hard enough, it would probably stick in the sheetrock. If it didn't, then my buddy sitting next to me would laugh, and he'd take the blame for it, which I found hilarious. Then I started thinking about what other people would think if they knew what I was thinking, which was even more hilarious to me. I was holding onto my desk trying to hold the laughter. Professor noticed, but he kept teaching. I never threw the pencil. Sunday school during First Communion practice, as a 7-year-old. We were learning how to eat the body and drink the blood of Christ when I got a little impatient. I decided to dip the bread into my cup of grape juice, and watched in horror as the bread became a soggy purple mess in my cup. In order to hide the evidence, I tossed that soggy blob along with all of the juice on the floor. At that exact moment, our teacher asked us to bow our heads in prayer. As we all looked down to pray, many of the other kids in class noticed the blob on the floor and looked around for the culprit. Me, with my shit-eating grin on my face, gave it away, and I started laughing mid-prayer. The teacher did not find kindly to my rude interruption of the Lord's Prayer, and asked me if I thought praying was funny. I said, "No ma'am, I'm sorry," and tried to hold it together, but 10 seconds into starting the prayer for the second time, I burst out laughing again. At this point, it was uncontrollable and I was kicked out of class. Let's just say I had some extra Hail Marys and our fathers to perform later that night. My daughter was in probably 1st or 2nd grade, and she was doing an online math homework where she had to answer a bunch of math questions, and it would give her percentage correct at the end, and then re-ask the ones she missed. She was down to one question and got it wrong, so she got 0% correct. She bust out crying because she got 0%, and for some reason I thought that was so funny that I bust out laughing and couldn't stop. And then she got even madder and cried harder because I was laughing at her, which made me laugh harder, which made her cry harder. We were at my uncle's funeral. His death was a surprise. I was standing with my cousin who just came back from abroad to attend her dad's funeral and was breaking down. My aunt, the deceased sister, came to tell my cousin that someone we know is apologizing for not being able to attend the funeral because she's in the hospital due to a car accident. My aunt went on describing the woman's very difficult condition and how she had an iron pole stuck into her forehead. 10 minutes later, the woman appears through the door in perfect health with just some scratches. My cousin sees her and look at me from the other side of the crowded silent room, and we both can't stop laughing for the rest of the funeral. Me and a friend were altar boys. An older woman took to the podium to read a Bible passage. The passage described how Jesus loves everyone. The sick and the healthy, the rich and the poor, the circumcised and the uncircumcised. That's all it took for a pair of 10-year-old boys to start laughing hysterically in front of a packed church.